So before I get into this video, I want to give a quick disclaimer that I will be covering some spoiler stuff. I will give a warning when I start covering the spoiler stuff, but this video will be broken up into 3 major parts, which is kind of the beginning, the middle, and the end. And the spoiler stuff will generally be at the end of the video, where I'll be discussing about stuff that hasn't happened yet, but that is still crucial to the romance between Rudy and Eris. So again, you have been warned, there will be some spoiler stuff in this video, and I will give a big warning before I start the 3rd section of the video. So getting into the actual beginning of the journey for Eris and Rudy, their journey has definitely spanned quite a number of volumes, which is understandable why a lot of people are very attached to Eris when you see the journey that Rudy and Eris have gone through from the beginning, where of course volume 2, when they're introduced, is that basically Rudy has been told, hey, you want to make some money, you've got to do this job and you will get the tuitions to go to this place, along of course with your other friend that you want to take along. So that's the beginning of their journey, that Rudy needs to teach this violent and vicious young lady that definitely has a lot of refinement needed when it comes to her manners and her behavior, etc. And Rudy definitely has a tricky job trying to navigate around that with her violent tendencies, her desire to just not listen and do as she sees. She definitely is a bit difficult for Rudy to deal with, but Rudy again does a pretty good job navigating around that and getting her to be more motivated in wanting to learn magic, and not just magic but also other fundamentally important things for Eris to become a lady of the household. And that is where their journey begins, is that Rudy is trying to break down the barriers of allowing them to kind of work together on, you know, that kind of relationship, so that they can both benefit in the short and long term. Because of course Eris wants to learn how to do magic just like Rudy did during that period where she was kidnapped and beaten up pretty badly, and of course Rudy threw the magic up in the air to give a signal, hoping that someone would come to save them, which of course did end up playing out. As the journey goes on, of course Eris becomes a lot more easier to deal with, though again her violent tendencies is something that's always been a issue, but as the journey goes on, volume by volume by volume, that does become more manageable. And I think a bit of it also has to do with the fact that, you know, she's trying to make Rudy happy, and that of course she knows that she can be a little bit too vicious at times and get a little bit too hot-headed, but that is Eris, and I think that's what a lot of people love about her, is just her hot-headedness. But I would say the beginning of their true romance begins on Rudy's birthday, particularly the birthday party where 2 major party members, one trying to hook Eris up with him, and of course the other one trying to hook Eris up with him, but for completely different reasons. One, the mother doing it because of course she felt bad for Rudy being abandoned by the parents, even though there were some underlying issues and reasons to that. And then of course you had the father, who was doing it more for political reasons, which then led to Eris kind of being picked up, thrown into Rudy's room and said, hey, you're going to make a family, you're going to get together, which of course did not turn out the way that I think the parents thought it was going to turn out. And of course Rudy did make a bit of a stumble and a fall in his behavior, and of course Eris forgave him, because at that point that is where Eris started to fall in love with Rudy. So even though she was a bit annoyed at him for what he did, she forgave him because again she had feelings for him. So she basically said, let's wait 10 years. At that point, this is where Eris gives the gift, they go out and they end up getting caught up in the big calamity, which leads Eris and Rudy being stuck in the Demon Continent. And this is where I think really their relationship really blossoms, because I think when you are put in a very sort of difficult situation with people, you learn the most about them and you develop the most. Because of the sticky situation that they were both in, Eris had to rely on Rudy quite a lot, because again, he was the only one out of the 2 that could speak the language. Of course, she learnt a little bit as time went on, but he was the main leader for them. He was the one that was leading the charge, and he was determined to get her home. That is something even Rudyard points out, is that Rudy's conviction and determination to get Eris home was commendable. Like, that was his sole purpose. And so, of course, that is where they make their long, epic journey together. And as time goes on, Eris is learning a little bit of the language. She's kind of toning her behavior down, even though as she learns the language, she does get into more scuffles because of the fact that she can now understand what some of the actual others are saying, and so that kind of agitates her a little bit. As time goes on, tones down bit by bit, but their closeness is what, again, is being built on because of the fact that they're going through trying times, they're learning more about each other, they're bonding. Again, they're having to stick closely together and trust in each other because, again, at any moment something could go wrong and Ruijerd could maybe snap and end up, you know, killing both of them, which I don't think was ever going to be the case, but at any point in time something could go wrong, and so the trust there needs to be there. The foundation of trust has to be there, and so that journey, I feel, is another massive pillar in bringing them together on a romantic level and bonding them. Now, getting into the last part, which again is going to be major spoilers, so again, if you do not want spoilers, click off of the video. I'm giving you a warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Getting into the final component, which is of course the last, I would say, 2 volumes for what would be the major arc, which of course for season 1 is most likely going to be covering 6 volumes. Eris is part of volumes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Eris leaves in volume 6, and her reasonings are justified, but the reason she gives Rudy is terrible. And that's the thing. Eris isn't exactly great at English. She didn't exactly finish her teachings because, of course, being stuck on the Demon Continent. But a lot of her love and devotion is, again, built on this idea that she can stand side by side with Rudy. And she has a massive inferiority complex, especially when Rudy almost gets beaten to a bloody pulp by some random guy walking down the street. Most light novel readers will know who I'm talking about, but I kind of wanted to leave no context there because it's more funny to say that. Random guy walks down the street, Rudy says hi, the other guy goes, "Hey, you heard of the man god?" And he goes, "Yeah," and then Rudy dies. I mean, they never had a chance against this guy, and this guy, of course, for those that want to know, is Orsted. This guy was powerful. He makes Rudy look like a rag doll. He makes the other two look like rag dolls. Even Ruijerd looks like a rag doll compared to him. And so it throws Eris in this massive headspin of, oh my god, how can I protect the one that I love? Rudy's so powerful, he's so gifted, he's so amazing. She puts him on this massive pedestal that's unachievable for her to ever reach. And even though she doesn't have the same magic skills, she is a very competent and good fighter. That is something you cannot take away from her, and even Rudy points that out, but for some reason she still feels inadequate. And even though they end up bonding during that night where they finally get back home, and this is something that happens in volume 6 that's definitely a very heavy topic, is that when Eris gets home, she finally, you know, sees everyone, and actually, no, she doesn't see anyone because everyone's dead except a butler and, of course, her trainer that she had there for all those sword training. That's all she has left. She has no family, she has no one except, of course, her trainer and, of course, Rudy. And that is where she becomes depressed, and she basically goes to Rudy that night and says, "I want a family, let's be a family." And of course she seduces Rudy. Rudy tries to resist, but at the end of the day Rudy gave in, and they ended up being together in, of course, the bed during that night. Of course, breaking the promise of wait 10 years, it ended up only being 5 years. Rudy was trying to uphold that promise, but of course Eris was very persuasive. And after that, that is where, of course, Eris does kind of the one-night stand and ends up running away, of course, with her trainer. The thing is Eris has a justifiable reason. She feels inferior. She feels that she can't stand side by side with Rudy. She feels like she can't protect Rudy, so she feels like she needs to train more and become stronger to be able to stand side by side. Her love and devotion to him is there. I just think how she communicates it is the most poorly executed part about her. She is not very good at communicating how she feels, but her genuine feelings are there. And that's what I love about the light novel series, is that, again, Every character is flawed, they have their strengths, have their weaknesses, and Eris is no exception to that rule. She has her flaws. She's not very good at communicating, but she is very loving and very devoting, though, again, having her violent tendencies. Of course, being certain family members that also have those similar traits, but now they are passed away and dead due to the whole situation. So you can see the whole situation play out, you know, from the very beginning. It's very rough. There's, you know, some very bad chemistry between them. And then by the birthday, that is where she discovers how she feels. And she says that in Volume 6, that she fell in love with him at the birthday. Then you've got the whole big epic journey in the Demon Continent, which brings them together. It strengthens the bonds. And then the final component at the end on Volume 6 is where, of course, she is at her lowest. She's sad, she's depressed, she's desperate, but at the same time she feels inferior and she feels she cannot stand side by side Rudy at that current time, which of course leads Rudy into a massive depressional spiral. Overall, I think the romance between them is super fascinating. Of course, I will be talking further about other stuff that will happen between them at a later date, if and when that happens, you know, not spoiling anything, but I wanted to talk about the big major step for them in this big arc, and of course that is volumes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So again, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.